Hi everyone, this is Adrian from Brotherhood of Tech, just coming to you for the first video. Uh, so what we're talking about today is the Nvidia Profile Inspector. It's a fantastic tool for being able to get full, really deep access to your SLI profile within your drivers. Um, for your global, which is, you know, everything, your default for whichever game you're in, or for basically any game you happen to have. So this is just one of the sites you can get it from, Guru 3D. That's just where I grabbed my copy from. I've been using this for many years now. It gives you a basic little overview, but doesn't really go into much detail at all. Doesn't really give it the credit that it's due. Just talks about its overclocking and giving you, little bits of details here, which is nice. But I mean, any program nowadays can do that. Really, this is what you're really wanting this program for. Is this part here, the profile inspector. So, which is, that one there. So just to give you an idea, if you've got 2, 3, 4 cards, you can go into your Nvidia control panel here. This is your global settings. You've also got program settings here for your different games and whatnot, programs. But if you have a look here, this is it for all the different settings versus all of this. So granted, not all of these are going to apply to your setup, depending on what your card's capable of and what your setup is capable of. But look, really you could go into, just about any of these really, and play around with them. Look, the parts that are the ones that you want to go for if you've got 2, 3, 4 cards. Firstly, you want to go to here, this multi-display mixed GPU acceleration. If you've only got one display, you should be going for single display performance mode. Okay, and you should be going for maximum performance, not optimal performance. Really, if you've got a desktop, you're plugged into power, you've got a powerful graphics card, multiple graphics cards, you're not going for energy efficiency, you want power. So apply those changes. And of course, if you ever make a mistake, default's over here, so it's not too difficult. Stuff everything up, and you can default everything up there if you have any problems. Then just below here is where we get into the actual SLI components. Alright, so have a look here. SLI count, auto select. Look, a lot of the times you might have 3 graphics cards. It'll think you have 4. So it might have 4 selected. I've got 2. So, we're going to say 2. And I do that for just all of these because, you still come across some DX9, not many DX10 titles anymore, but you still come across occasional DX9 and all that. So, yeah, you kind of want those there to be no problems. If you've got 2 cards, auto select should work well, but if you've got 3 or 4, you really should be, designating that there. Now, here is the modes. Now, this is what really defines using this. A lot of times you'll find that an inappropriate rendering technique is used. So you've got AFR, which is alternate frame rendering, which is your common one, your SLI2, your Crossfire 2, all that sort of, those 2 ones. That's what they use. With DX12, they're moving back to split frame rendering, SFR. But obviously, if you're not using DX12, you can't use SFR because it's going to crash your program or it's going to make it perform terribly. So you either use AFR or AFR2. AFR2 seems to have better results in the majority of the games that I've tested. Now if you have 3 or 4 cards, particularly if you have 3, this is the one that you should be using. SLI predefined mode, force AFR of SFR, fallback 3 AFR. When I had 3 cards, I tested everything, and time again, for the majority of the cases, this was the best way to go. You do have a few specific ones here. I have not had much luck at all with trying to use any of those. So yeah, sticking to really AFR2 or the fallback if you have more is the way to go. Single will just force a single card. You know, your primary card, your secondary card won't run, so there's really no point doing that unless the developer really hasn't supported SLI at all and it performs terribly. Then you might do that, but you know, and that way you can do that for individual titles then without having to risk, you know, without having to enable and disable SLI all the time. You can simply have it disabled for certain programs. So you find something is really not working well, just force it in here. And, you know, just to be safe, should be doing it all the time. So I've got 2 cards. AFR2 works the best that I've found for 2 cards. I've done a lot of testing, and that's the one that's mainly worked with the 2 cards. A lot of other ones, look, there's plenty that I have not played with, especially, you know, these ones here. These ones I found have been the most. A lot of the times the drivers ship with just very standard settings. A little while back you probably remember that Nvidia stated that they weren't going to support 3 and 4 card setups anymore. They never really supported it that well to begin with, so it's not really anything to worry about. A lot of tech tubers and tech news sites, you know, in their articles claim that 3 and 4 cards is completely pointless and not worth it, and you know, it's just silly. It's because they don't use this. I've tried to contact several tech YouTubers, ask them why they weren't using this, suggest that they give it a try, if they could, you know, do a bit of an analysis on it, that sort of thing, you know, see how they like it. None of them have bothered to get back to me or answer me or anything. So whether it just got lost in the plethora of messages that they get, or, you know, it just went into the too hard basket, yeah, not sure. A lot of them are very fixed in their belief that anything more than 2 cards is a waste. You know, really, it depends program to program. It's not all in the drivers. You know, a lot of people go, oh, you know, Nvidia or AMD, they're not optimizing their cards, their drivers for multiple cards properly and all this sort of stuff. You know, there's part of it's in the drivers, the rest of it is with the developer, the engine's ability to deal with it as well. Classic example, Tomb Raider 2013. I'll just flick over to an article that I actually did. And I'll link this as well as the download link for Nvidia Profile Inspector, and so I'll list these in here. So I'll show you in a minute, but we'll just have a look at these, you know, scaling rates. So 100% is a single card. So as you can see, you know, what you're really after, your average and your minimum. 191%, 194% with 2 cards, that's phenomenal. And then 260%, 255% with 3 cards. So you're almost getting, you know, all 3 cards out of that. You're never going to get a perfect 300%. You know, no, you won't even get that with Firestrike. It's a funny thing, I actually had to modify the profiles for Firestrike. I don't have it on here, but yeah, I actually had to modify it because there was a lot of micro stuttering, which is related to the frame time variances in that as well as flickering and all sorts of carrying on. So I actually modified it. I set it to, when I had the 3 cards, set it to this fallback 3 AFR, and it was smooth. Didn't affect the actual performance by much, just a few percent, which is still nice, but it visibly looked much better, much smoother. All that choppiness was gone, which affects the experience. So that's that. This is when I was running Eyefinity. Well, Surround, sorry. The different technologies, exactly the same, but anyway. Some of the, ones where the developers just put no effort in whatsoever. And you can see here. So, your single to your dual to your triple is just absolutely terrible. Slightly better, and the micro stuttering with 2 cards was pretty bad. With 3 cards was just terrible, barely playable, and you can see the frame rates were just shocking with those. I mean, with these settings and this resolution, it wasn't massively playable anyway. But yeah, with 3 cards, it got really bad. Watch Dogs was actually a bit of a. They actually mixed 2 different engines in, and I could actually assign different SLI profiles and go to different parts of the map, and where there were different textures and things like that, and experience different results. better performance in some areas, worse in others, and then vice versa when you mess with the SLI profiles. And yeah, I never was able to get a happy medium, to perform nicely in one area and then terribly in another. So I made sure purposefully that I went to multiple different areas in my benchmarking runs with this, driving around as well, which, causing explosions, doing all that sort of stuff, that would produce lots of effects, see lots of different textures, push the cards hard, all that sort of stuff, which exposes, problems like this. You've got Battlefield 4, which I believe was the first one that I had here. Look, scaling rates, not too bad. So, your average there, 162%. And then with 387%. So, not too bad. And that was after. It was pretty bad. Didn't really get any improvement with 3 cards and a hell of a lot of micro stuttering before modifying the SLI profiles. Fixed it afterwards and certainly improved quite a lot. So you don't get a huge lot of benefit. I did a bunch of testing. I also looked at results that other people got at around the same time who were doing good testing and comprehensive testings with 3 cards, up to 3 cards, and it was pretty consistent. I was finding that I was getting about 165% with 2 cards and about 210% with 3 cards on average. So you'll see that with different things here. Batman, another one that wasn't particularly well optimized either. As you can see, those performances are quite bad. The minimum's shocking. The frame drops were just terrible in that. There was physics calculations going on as well, but yeah, it wasn't great. So anyway, you can see, other ones, Far Cry 3, really nice ones there. Slightly better than average. So you can get some really nice performance out of this, and this still games being made that do pretty well, but unfortunately the more people get complacent and, you know, don't push the developers to actually put the effort in, then yeah, the worse it's going to get down the line. And we've seen it become quite stagnant. And we've seen Nvidia put their hands up and go, no, we're not going to be held responsible if you go and buy 3 or 4 cards and then aren't happy with the scaling results. You know, and I mean, fair enough, because they can't force the developers to do that extra work. And I don't expect a lot of developers to do that. You know, there's not many people that venture beyond 2 cards, but a reasonable amount of people go for a second card, and I think the developers should be pushing for, you know, trying to get at least 65-70% would be nice, you know, in their titles, because, you know, you don't want to have to upgrade to the latest and greatest every 18 months. So anyway, so yeah, that's a little idea of what you can get if you've got 2 or 3 cards or more, you know, and what you should be doing if you've got 2 or 3 cards. The different settings here. You can achieve some of those results by going through here. If you have a look, you can see the SLI rendering mode. But look, there's no, you know, they've only got single GPU, AFR1, AFR2. You know, there's no SFR for DX12, and there's no AFR3, you know, fallback AFR3. So yeah, really, you need this if you're going to be having 3 and even 2. It's nice. You can get some nice little bonuses, nice little boosts. You won't get a lot, because they do a pretty reasonable job of having them set up for 2 cards. But every now and then, yeah, you'll see it pretty bad, and you'll have to go in and do a bit of tweaking. And you know, most times you'll get at least some benefit. So it's certainly worth having a go. So look, I'm blathering on a bit, so I'll leave it at that. There'll be information in the description, some links, and I'll be popping out a few different videos down the line. If you like it, please feel free to subscribe, hit a like, comment down below, you know, how many cards have you got? What have you got? Radeon cards, you got Nvidia, GeForce cards. There used to be Radeon Pro, which was a third-party software for Radeon cards. Unfortunately, AMD bought the guy and basically hired him, which you would think would be a good thing, and it kind of was, because they got him to integrate, you know, what he'd found with his, particularly the frame timing, fixing all that up into their what eventually became Omega drivers, but they didn't let him have the same freedom. So his program had way more, but you can't even really get it anymore. They kind of shut it down when they bought it all out. Yeah, so it was a shame. And last time I checked, there still wasn't anything that could do it. And look, they seem to do a reasonable job, but there's only so much that a computer can do on its own. You know, it's a lot better when you can actually get stuck in and do a test and see what's going to work well, rather than just, you know, click a button and hope for the best. So, alright, thank you for listening, and have a good day. I'll see you next time.